But simply put, if Mansell wins the last 3 races, he's champion for certain. Piquet now has to start dropping points, so he has to come 3rd or better to improve his total. But whatever happens in Mexico, the championship can't be decided tonight. Well, Mansell's won the opening skirmish. He's taken pole position alongside Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari. Championship leader Piquet on the 2nd row, with Thierry Boutsen in the Benetton, and the 3rd row, Alain Prost in the McLaren and Theo Fabi in the 2nd Benetton. All set to go. We'll join James Hunt and Murray Walker.
Welcome to Mexico, where the news is that the temperature is in the 80s. Nigel Mansell in pole position, coming towards us now, is driving a brand new car which has been built up overnight after his practice crash. Ayrton Senna in the background, starting in 7th place in the yellow Lotus, is in the T car because he had suspension problems with his active suspension on the parade lap, so he's had to make a very rapid switch. He's had active suspension problems all through the practice. So is he going to last the race? And Senna is the man who finished in 3rd position last year. This course is very, very bumpy. There's a lot of dust on the racing line. All the drivers, with the exception of Nelson Piquet, have been complaining violently to Jean-Marie Balestre, the head man of FISA, the governing body of motorsport, about the conditions at the circuit. He's said that he's going to ban active suspension next year, but immediately retracted his statement when challenged by Gérard Ducarouge, the Lotus designer. But, so in pole position, it's Mansell. 2nd on the right is Gerhard Berger. 3rd behind Mansell is Nelson Piquet. 4th is Thierry Boutsen. 5th is Prost. That's the 3rd car on the left. Then Theo Fabi in 6th position. Ayrton Senna is 7th. Derek Warwick is in 11th position. Jonathan Palmer is right down in 22nd place, and Martin Brundle has gone well in the Zach Speed in 13th place. They're coming up now to complete the grid in the background. Don't forget, the problems are likely to be tyres, although the Goodyear technicians say they're fairly confident that unlike last year, the cars will be able to go through. We'll soon see, because the race is almost on. And it's a good start by Mansell, a better start by Berger. Piquet sprinting through from the centre. And now we need to look at turn 1, because is it Mansell, is it Piquet? It's Berger. Berger leads. Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari leads. Boutsen is up there alongside Mansell. So already Thierry Boutsen, who was fastest in the warm-up this morning and started 4th on the grid, is well up. Indeed, he's in 2nd place. It's Berger leading, Boutsen 2nd, then Mansell, then Prost is up. Piquet is in 3rd place, not Nigel Mansell. So here they go, Berger, Boutsen, Piquet, Prost, Mansell, Theo Fabi well up. I didn't see Ayrton Senna go through there. Now they're coming up to the complex of 10 bends, some of which they come down into 2nd place, and the yellow flag waving furiously in the background. Does that mean someone's gone off out of picture? Well, it's not Berger anyway.
And Nelson Piquet has stalled.
That's sensational. That's the World Championship leader. Piquet stalls on lap 1. What a dramatic development. Now he's got to fight his way up from the back, and this gives Nigel Mansell a tremendous chance, but it's Berger leading.
Yes, the point though, Piquet's received a push start, and theoretically he'll be disqualified from the race for receiving outside assistance. Whether he will continue in the race until it's confirmed, but Boutsen challenging Berger in the Ferrari, and the Ferrari certainly seemed to have plenty of power as he outdragged Piquet to the first corner, because Piquet made the best start from the first 2 rows and was pushing in between, and once again the camera didn't follow the race.
But look at these two, they're out on their own. And there's Nigel Mansell in the background in 3rd position as we join Satoru Nakajima, who's in trouble already. No wheel on my wagon, on this one anyway. The right front is missing from Nakajima's Lotus Honda, and he's out of the race, and that's Johansson.
And Prost. So Prost is obviously, and that's Nakajima, who we've just had a look at his missing right front wheel from the onboard camera. So not a very long race for Nakajima, but that's a sad sight. 2 empty McLarens, both parked. So
that's a Zach Speed on the left. It's certainly Stefan Johansson, and it is Christian Danner's car. So Stefan Johansson and Christian Danner out, as is Nelson Piquet, he hasn't, unless he's got going again, Nelson Piquet stalled, and as James said, if he gets a push start, that means he could be disqualified, but now Boutsen leads. As Berger led last year in a Benetton, now Boutsen leads, and it's Boutsen leading, Berger in second place, and that looks this Mansell in the background.
And another yellow flag at this corner here. That could be the Johansson-Dana incident, but the yellow flags are being waved. And Boutsen is now confirming the form that he showed in the warm-up this morning, where the Benetton went absolutely marvellous. He was quickest in race trim this morning on full tanks. And Mansell now running in third place, and Piquet effectively out of the race, although I'm sure he'll continue to circulate. And but Mansell really has got to get more points than third place.
Race order, lap 2, Boutsen leading. There is Berger in second place. Mansell is in third place. Alboreto is in fourth place. Teo Fabi is fifth. Ayrton Senna is in sixth place. In seventh place it is Riccardo Patrese, and in eighth place is Andrea De Cesaris.
And that's Martin Brundle parking his car, looking pretty disappointed that Zakspeed has not been famed for its reliability, but then this season nor has the Benetton or the Ferrari, strangely enough. And Ferrari certainly have had a very bad record over the last half a dozen races for reliability. Benetton have been struggling, but getting better. But certainly the chassis is working very, very well. This is very much a chassis circuit. It's very bumpy indeed, owing to the sort of general subsidence and earth movement that takes place in Mexico City.
Here's a strange sight. Nakajima appears to have got back into the race.
Unless they're showing a recording. I think this could be a replay of the opening laps. In fact, yes, very much, and that's how he did it. And that was a replay of Nakajima once again driving to the back of somebody else, clearly forgot to brake. There is Alain Prost out of the race, walking in. So we don't know what became of Prost, but we saw him have that contact with Nelson Piquet early in the race, and it looked to me, now Stefan Johansson, so the McLaren team one after another, walking in, a very sad day for them.
That's the battle for the 3.5 litre class, and there is Piquet catching him up. Now, leading the 3.5 litre class at the present moment is Ivan Capelli in the march, followed by Philippe Alliot. And as you can see, Nelson Piquet is back in the race, probably knowing that his teammate Nigel Mansell is dropping back. The gap is something like 13 seconds now between Mansell and Berger, who's in second place. We are on lap 9 in this 68-lap race. Piquet scything his way through the field. It's still Boutsen leading, chased by Berger in second place. Mansell is still third. Senna is fourth. De Cesaris is in fifth position. Alboreto is sixth. Fabi is seventh. In eighth position, it is Riccardo Patrese. And in ninth place, it's Alessandro Nannini. And 10th is Eddie Cheever in the Arrows. And soon we will be having Nelson Piquet, as he's now coming up. He's past Alliot. He is up behind Streff in the Tyrrell. Watch him blast past. He does it now. Now he's coming up to the battle for the leadership in the 3.5 litre class. Capelli chased by Dalmas.
And Berger is making this quite hard work for himself, because most of the time he's sticking pretty close to Boutsen's tail, and that is, and Alboreto off the course. Alboreto, is he just parking? He doesn't look as if he's hit anything. Anyway, the car's all in one piece. Whether his engine stopped, some sort of mechanical drama, we can't exactly tell. So, just snapping one of the Tyrrells there. And Berger, as I was saying, this is a very hard circuit indeed physically, with all the bumps, with the heat and everything. And if he won't really, he's going to be a very, very tired man at the end of the race if he sits this close behind, because your concentration level has to be much higher. You can't see where you're going nearly so well. You've got your view is restricted by the car in front, and the car slides about more when it's this close behind the car in front, because he's making a hole in the air, and the wings, which create downforce onto the road for grip, are in a partial vacuum going through the hole in the air made by the car in front. So of course you don't get as much grip.
But Just look at this wonderful scrap. We had a marvellous race in Spain. We had a superb race in Portugal 1 week before it. And now here in Mexico, a repetition of a superb race, but new men at the front. And how heartening it is to see Thierry Boutsen at last where he deserves to be. That's up front. You can see now that Mansell is dropping back. 15.4 seconds is the gap. 10 seconds ahead of Senna, who is fourth, and has got De Cesaris and Fabi right behind him. And Piquet, out of your vision, I can tell you, is fairly rocketing through the field. He is now up to 11th place.
And this time, that's Prost's car, I would think. This time, Berger was very well placed to attack, and Berger makes it through, outbraking. Sorry, he doesn't. I beg your pardon. Boutsen holds him off, but he got alongside, and Boutsen took the inside line, and he's run wide, and Berger gets through this time. So Berger takes the lead, and I would suspect that he'll be able to pull away a little bit from Boutsen, because you can sit that close behind somebody. It means you've got something in hand when you're following, and I would expect Berger to start opening a bit of a gap.
And the crowd roared as Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari took the lead. It's very clear to see where their sympathies lie with Ferrari. Now, the last time a Benetton won a Grand Prix was here in Mexico last year. The last time a Ferrari won the Grand Prix was in Germany in 1985. That's how long it is since Ferrari have won. And Michele Alboreto said the other day, we desperately need a win for the old man's sake, for the Commendatore, Enzo Ferrari himself. Well, sadly, it's not going to be Michele Alboreto who is out to add to his list of retirements. He has already gone out 10 times this year. Now you can see Berger closing up on the 3.5-litre cars and away from Boutsen.
Yes, but I said I anticipated that he'd pull away. I didn't expect him to pull that much, and for 3/4 of a lap, which is all he's been in the lead for, well, about a lap right now. He's just passed the point, and he really has pulled out an awful lot on Boutsen. What he'll be hoping for is for a clear run through the back markers and not to get too involved with them. But of course, even if they hold him up a little bit, Boutsen still has got to fight his way past them. And because of the huge power difference between the normally aspirated cars and the turbocharged cars here, exaggerated by the altitude, it is, in a way, it makes it easier for him to pass the normally aspirated cars. They're quick round the corners, they don't hold them up too much round the corners, and when they get to the straight, then he can really squirt past them with the greatest of ease.
And here is some news. Nelson Piquet is in tremendous form, although amazingly he's not the fastest on the course. He's now up to 9th position, and the other Williams is also doing well, because Nigel Mansell is starting to catch Thierry Boutsen, who is now in 2nd place. Mansell has closed the gap from nearly 14 seconds as you look at Piquet in 9th position, and he is now the fastest on the course, 1 minute 21.80, and that's a speed, as you can see, of 120.9.
Yes, but Piquet may well be under threat of being disqualified from the race for receiving outside assistance when he got a push start after he stalled it with that spin when he had a tangle with Prost on the first lap. But, of course, and there's Boutsen. Boutsen's in trouble, and that would explain why probably Berger was able to go away from him so quickly. So Thierry Boutsen looks as if his afternoon's work has come to an end, coasting to a halt, obviously some sort of mechanical problem. But Piquet's problem, the problem, of course, with disqualifying somebody for receiving outside assistance is it's a bit of a difficult one to prove, and you usually end up with huge arguments and discussions after the race, because what the officials will say is you took a push start and you were helped, and the driver will say I was in a dangerous place and my car had to be pushed and I was pushing the starter button when my foot happened to slip off the clutch, and it started on its own starter.
Nigel Mansell is now 2nd as you look at Nelson Piquet Now, Nigel Mansell, of course, with the retirement of Boutsen, has moved up into second place, and Nelson Piquet is in seventh place, just 1 place off the points. Race order on lap 17. There is the race leader, Gerhard Berger. He is now leading Nigel Mansell by about 11 seconds. Ayrton Senna is in third place. Up into fourth has gone De Cesaris. Up into fifth has come Patrese. In sixth position now it's Eddie Cheever, and in seventh is the flying Nelson Piquet. Things are literally hotting up in Mexico. And the race order now on this, the 20th lap, is still Berger leading, Mansell second, Senna that you're looking at in third position. De Cesaris still holding fourth place in the Brabham BMW. Still fifth is his teammate Riccardo Patrese, who is going to Williams next year, and you can see that De Cesaris is only just behind Ayrton Senna. That's how close it is, as Berger has now got ahead of Eddie Cheever and lapped him already. And in sixth position, it's Eddie Cheever. In seventh place, it is Nelson Piquet.
And I saw smoke then from the back of Berger's Ferrari, and that looked, yes, definitely, Berger is in trouble, and whatever that is, he can't last for very much longer, maybe a few laps if it's just a small oil leak onto an exhaust pipe, but it looks actually as if it's steam coming from the water system breather, possibly. But whatever it is, that is not what a healthy Ferrari is meant to look like, and it looks like a big one's about to happen.
Gerhard Berger is on his way into the pits and out of the Mexican Grand Prix, and in a few seconds Nigel Mansell will be leading in the Williams. There he goes. Nigel Mansell leads the Mexican Grand Prix on lap 21 out of 68. Now, can he keep going? It is absolutely crucial to Nigel Mansell's World Championship chances that he win here in Mexico as he won in Spain. But there is the tragic sight of the Ferrari yet again retiring. Out of the race goes Gerhard Berger on lap 22, and you'll notice that they are not even changing the tyres, which is the normal precautionary move, just to make sure, and he's out of the car.
Yes, that quantity of smoke was clearly terminal on Berger's car, and a shame for Berger, and nice to see new leaders, but tremendous news for Nigel Mansell, and after some of the luck he had at the end of last year and earlier this year, really, I think he should be pretty pleased with that. Now, Nigel, keep it nice and steady. No need to ride it over the curbs now. He may not yet know that Berger has pitted, although I would think so, because I'm sure the Williams team will have told him on his wireless. So Mansell now with a very comfortable lead indeed, some 20 seconds ahead of Ayrton Senna. And the only potential worry for him in the race is, of course, keeping the car in one piece and hoping that it'll run reliably through to the end. And the other thing is, of course, dependent upon what Piquet is doing. That's if he isn't disqualified, but I don't think there's any chance of him catching Nigel, so there's nothing he can do about that. Worrying about it won't help him, so I'm sure he'll just be concentrating on now making a good clean run to the end.
Here is the story of the Mexican Grand Prix so far. Lap 1, Piquet stalls. Lap 2, out goes Nakajima to be joined by Christian Danner and Stefan Johansson for damage problems. Lap 4, out goes Berger. Lap 8, Alain Prost, who had a chance of winning the World Championship, walks in. Lap 13, Alboreto retires. Lap 16, Boutsen, who was leading, retires. And on lap 22, Berger, who was leading, retires. And Nigel Mansell, the man that you're looking at, takes the lead and is now in the front for the second Grand Prix in succession. He is leading Ayrton Senna by 12 seconds. Senna has got Andrea De Cesaris right behind him in third place. In fourth place, it is Riccardo Patrese. In fifth position, it is Eddie Cheever. And in sixth place, out goes De Cesaris. He's done it again. Andrea De Cesaris, for whatever reason, has again retired on lap 23 here in Mexico. Andrea De Cesaris goes off the course. If only this young man could keep his car on the circuit, he would finish well up in the points almost invariably, but regrettably and sadly, so seldom does he do it. So now Mansell leads, Senna second, up to third place comes Patrese, up into fourth position comes Eddie Cheever, into fifth place goes Nelson Piquet, who is therefore well in the points. Sixth is Teo Fabi, there is the race leader, and he is pulling away from Ayrton Senna. The gap is now 22 seconds between Nigel Mansell in the Williams Honda and Ayrton Senna in the Lotus Honda. Now Mansell knows the car beautifully, perfectly. He did not have a good race in Mexico last year because in a situation when he could have won the World Championship in Mexico, he fluffed his start and finished in fifth position ultimately after fighting his way through the field, which is precisely what his teammate Nelson Piquet is doing, and he's now up into fourth position. Nelson Piquet, breaking the lap record, not once but several times, is now up into fourth place on lap 24, chasing Riccardo Patrese, and he will, I think, fairly soon catch him.
Yes, and Mansell won't relish the memory of his performance here last year, because basically that was where he blew the championship, because he was in very good shape at the front of the grid after qualifying, and he forgot to put it in gear. He'd taken it out of gear waiting for the red light to come on, forgot to put it back in gear. He was in neutral when the light went on, and basically that cost him the championship, because even had his tyre, had there not been tyre problems in Australia, there's a good chance he wouldn't have won the championship there, because Piquet was in front of him, remember, and Rosberg was ready to wait for Prost to let him win if necessary. So, because Rosberg also went out with the tyre problem. So he did look like finishing fourth there, and that would have been out of it. So Mexico, he will feel he's got a lot of amends to make here.
Well, he's certainly making them. Nigel Mansell is now leading Ayrton Senna there. Williams Honda leads Lotus Honda by nearly half a minute, and Nigel Mansell will, of course, in full knowledge of what is happening in the race through the excellent pits-to-car radio system that the Williams team have, be playing it very carefully indeed. He will be keeping off the apex of the corners as he goes through them. Here he goes over the line to complete his 25th lap. Race order, Mansell leading Senna by some 30 seconds. In third position, Patrese. Fourth is Piquet. What a fantastic drive the Brazilian is having. But he's got to finish higher than fourth in order to add to his World Championship points. He'll only get 1 point if he finishes in third place, because, as James has explained, the drivers have to discard points after 11 scores, and Piquet already has 11, whereas Nigel Mansell, who you are looking at, only has 8 scores from the 13 races that have been held so far, and can add all the points that he scores here in Mexico, and then in Japan, and finally in Australia. So the World Championship is really turning out to be, as it so very often does, a cliffhanger. And there is Riccardo Patrese in the background in third position, ahead of fourth place man Nelson Piquet. Let's see if we see the Brazilian come flying through. No, we don't. Piquet is in fourth place, Cheever is in fifth position, and in sixth place it's Teo Fabi. Nigel Mansell, who goes through and laps the 3.5 litre Tyrrell of Philippe Streff. No, Piquet, I'm sorry, lapping Streff. Nigel Mansell is on 61 World Championship points if he stays where he is. But, I say again, the race is only at half distance. You can see how demanding it is now. Into the left-hander, that's the third gear at about 85 miles an hour. Now after the right-hander at turn 3. Up now to turn 5. Into that tremendous wiggle-woggle where it's very difficult to get the flow and the rhythm right as they go through a series of bends, which ultimately leads down. And I don't know who that is, can't identify. It's Derek Warwick. Derek Warwick out.
A bit of a worry, looks like a big chunk. He's not really moving very much in the car. And it looks like he's had a pretty big shunt. There was Both corners on this side of the car are off, and nobody's got to him yet. The marshals are being very slow, but oh, I'm glad his arms are moving. He's now, it looks like the car is probably pretty bent round his legs, which is why he's having a struggle, but it looks to me as if all four limbs are working, so Derek at least is standing, so that's good news, and hopefully he hasn't been hurt.
Is this going to be a replay of Warwick going off? Yes, it is. Off goes the arrow, slam, bang, into the tyres and the barrier. You see the car spin out. Those are tyres from the tyre barrier, not from the car.
And that was the fastest corner on the circuit coming onto the straight, and he would have been doing some 170 miles an hour when he went off the road there, so and that's a bit of hot oil just burning away a bit. And the black flag is out. It looks like they're going to stop the race. Now this is quite a surprise, because with the crane there, they can remove the car and lift it over the barrier. I don't see any reason why they can't just get the car out of the way and continue with the race. So this does seem to me to be a strange manoeuvre stopping the race.
Now, here is a development and a half. The race, as James has just said, has been stopped on the 33rd lap. That is not half distance, so unless there is some special arrangement, the race will be restarted, and the decision as regards the winner will be on aggregate times of the two portions of the race.
And that's what's going to happen, what must rank as more wretched luck for Mansell, and a stoppage that can only act in favour of Nelson Piquet. A second race to make up the balance of the laps remaining, and a result based on the aggregate of the two. And the important contest is between Mansell and Piquet there has to make up 45.3 seconds on Mansell for overall victory. Well, Piquet lined up for the restart, despite the doubts about receiving outside assistance when he stalled earlier. The grid lined up in their positions from the first race, at the end of the first race, and after a stoppage of 21 minutes, they were set to go again. We'll rejoin James and Murray.
So now they are coming through the 14 restarters out of the 26 original starters with 33 laps to go.
It sounds as if they've got Capelli's car going in the pit road, so he'll have to get away once the field has gone.
Mansell pole, Senna second, Patrese third, Piquet fourth. And it's go for 33 laps with Nigel Mansell in pole position and getting away well. Senna, whose car has been worked on, challenging, and Piquet is up behind his teammate and inside Senna as they go into the first right-hander, and Piquet, of course, will be desperately trying to get ahead of Mansell and then break away, and he's done it. He's done it. Piquet leads, Mansell is second, Senna is third, and now we will have to keep a very careful weather eye on the gap between Nelson Piquet and Nigel Mansell. Mansell, of course, may decide to just drive round behind Piquet. Chiva is third, Farby is in fourth position in the sole remaining Benetton, and so it is the familiar sight with 33 laps, including the one that they are on, of the two Williams Hondas in front. Nelson Piquet leading and about 4 car lengths ahead of Nigel Mansell. There is Ayrton Senna in the yellow Lotus Honda in third position. Honda powered cars first, second and third, and then it's Chiva in a fine fourth position and Patrese fifth.
Well, certainly a very lively start by Nelson Piquet. He didn't make a great one, but the power of his Honda engine seemed to be adequate to get himself between Mansell and Senna. Got into the lead, but would think it unlikely that Senna is going to have any delusions about having any chance of winning this race on overall from Mansell. If Mansell has no trouble, I can't see Nelson being able to pull away at a second a lap roughly, which is what he's got to do to make up for some half-minute deficit that he's got on his hands. But I think Nelson will be pretty happy. In fact, it's 3/4 of a minute. 45 seconds is the difference on the road. So all Nigel had to do is just sit behind Nelson. There's no reason for him to rush past him or anything like that. He's in a commanding lead of the race, and he can let Nelson have his fun and just keep him covered. But of course, pride is an important feature, and if he gets near the end of the race, he might feel it'd be nice to win both halves of the race on the road properly.
So it's the two Williams cars setting the pace on the second of this 33-lap second segment of the restarted Mexican Grand Prix. And both of them rocketing away. Well, Mansell is certainly not giving in. As James has said, there is no love lost between Nelson Piquet and Nigel Mansell. Indeed, Frank Williams himself admitted the other day that he had tried desperately to dampen the fire that smouldered between the Brazilian and the Englishman. And Mansell challenges and comes right up alongside Piquet, and at the critical moment takes the apex of the bend and loses it again.
Well, I don't think that was very clever driving by Nigel Mansell at all then. He got himself offline, and he had to go on the slippery bit of the track, and he could so easily have thrown his chance of the World Championship away if he'd slithered into Piquet then, and you saw him slithering a bit, and he doesn't know what Piquet's going to do, how hard Piquet's going to be about entering the corner, and I just think that I don't see why Nigel's trying to overtake him. Okay, if it's easy and he can get right alongside and hold the line for the corner, fine, but that was really the only thing that Nigel could have done then, was have things go a bit wrong and thrown it all away, and that'd be such a shame. So he can just sit behind Nelson, and he'll win the race easily. He does not need to pass him. He can pass him if he gets an easy opportunity, but it's a mistake to try and fight his way past, quite definitely. Because Nelson, we know there's no love lost, and Nelson is not going to make it easy for him. That you can be absolutely certain about.
Particularly as Nelson Piquet bitterly resents the fact that Nigel Mansell beat him in France and in Britain by taking the lead from him in what he, Piquet, thought were questionable circumstances. He didn't like the way he was passed by Nigel Mansell. Mansell's answer would be, of course, well, I got past you fair and square, and Piquet has contended that there was a danger, as James has just said, of both the Williams Hondas being taken out of the race. It didn't happen, and it hasn't happened today. But that is what Piquet thinks, and now he is, as a result of Mansell having lost his rhythm, and you can see Senna flying along in third place in the background. This is lap 4 of the restarted Mexican Grand Prix, which is a 33-lap segment, and it's Piquet leading, Mansell second, Senna third, Cheever fourth, Riccardo Patrese is in 5th place, and I'm afraid I just do not know at the present moment what the aggregate situation is, but I can tell you this, that it looks to me as though Piquet is now ahead of Patrese on aggregate.
Yes, and hopefully that little moment that Nigel had when he got on the slippery stuff, trying to pass Nelson unnecessarily, either that or Nigel's beginning to drop back quite quickly, either that or maybe Mansell's in some sort of trouble, because he's now falling back quite a lot. I thought maybe he's just realised that the sensible tactic was to take it easier, just sit behind Piquet, but I can't see that Nigel would have dropped back this much. Well, he's not too far back. Maybe he's just doing the sensible thing tactically and just sitting on his very big lead that he has in the race.
And let me quickly put you in the picture about the captions you will be seeing and the words you will be hearing from James and I. James and I are talking to you about what is happening on the track in this restarted segment. The caption will be showing the aggregate positions. You just saw Senna second on aggregate and Piquet third, because as I suspected, Piquet has already made up in time the gap that existed between himself and Riccardo Patrese when Patrese was third and Piquet was fourth in the first segment of the race. So Piquet now challenging for second place, trying desperately to catch on time Ayrton Senna. And the gap between Piquet and Senna at the end of lap 30 was some 9 seconds. And it's not going to be very far off that now, because Piquet is undoubtedly not only leading this segment, but the fastest man on the course, although Nigel Mansell is keeping him well in sight. Lap 5 out of 33. And Mansell is speeding up. The fastest lap we've had so far was Nelson Piquet that you're looking at, leading the segment second overall 1 minute 19.4, a whisker off the lap record. But now Nigel Mansell has gone round in 1 minute 19.7, and Piquet replies with a new lap record. 1 minute 19.2, 124.86 miles an hour. So that is on lap 51 overall, and Nelson Piquet has broken his own lap record by 1/10 of a second. Doesn't sound very much, but remember, last year they had any compound of Goodyear tyre that they wanted, and also they had a higher boost level from their turbochargers than they are permitted this year. So it's a tremendous achievement for Piquet on this bumpy circuit, which has certainly deteriorated since last year, to break his own lap record. Now there is Mansell, hanging on 31 seconds now, is the overall lead.
And if we watched Capelli's March car following Mansell through the S-bend, you get a pretty clear idea of just how nimble the normally aspirated cars are, and how, in fact, more manoeuvrable than the big, slightly heavier turbos. And of course the turbos, what really hurts the turbos is they, on half throttle, the engine is not very responsive, so they have a throttle response problem, which of course the normally aspirated cars don't get. But certainly through this twisty bit, Capelli can pretty much hold on to anybody, the quickest Williams is. But of course once we get to the main straights, it's waving bye-bye.
So Mansell leading overall by just about half a minute, and we are now on lap 53 in this aggregate race of 63 laps, of which 30 will have been the first segment and 33 the second segment, because I remind you the race was stopped actually on the 32nd lap when Derek Warwick went off and his car had to be retrieved, and therefore the race was stopped. The difference seems to be held now at about half a minute, so Nigel Mansell has speeded up, as I was telling you, but Nelson Piquet is still the fastest man on the circuit with that new lap record of 1 minute 19.2 as Mansell goes into turn 2, now turn 3, up that little short straight, into the right-hander, into the wiggle-woggle, and this is where that tremendously demanding flowing section of second and third gear bends starts, and where the pulsations of the turbo can make the car very difficult indeed to drive. Many of the teams have been out testing their turbo engines with the boost pressure reduced from 4 bar to 2.5 bar to check for next year, and strangely enough the times in many cases were faster than the higher turbo pressures this year, primarily because the cars are easier to drive. Mansell completes another lap on his own on the circuit, leading the race overall on lap 55 out of 63, and the gap is increasing. That means to say, paradoxically enough, that Mansell is catching Nelson Piquet. The gap is up to 32 seconds. Piquet's time has gone down to 1:22 from 1:19.
Well, very much as we predicted, that Piquet would probably, with about 10 laps to go, give up the fruitless chase. Remember, he's got a very big lead, some 20 seconds or so, over Ayrton Senna in third place on the road, on the overall combined race times, and so he's not achieving anything by charging around at lap record speed. And that's Alex Caffey just pulling up, so getting out of the car. His race sadly is run again, and there's Ayrton Senna, so that confirms Senna would appear to have had a spin, and he's getting outside assistance, and see if he can get it going. Has he got it going? And he seems to be very stuck. The marshal's running about the track, and it all looks a bit messy here, but at least the yellow flag is being properly waved.
Well, Senna can furiously gesticulate, start me, start me, start me, which is what he's saying. But if he does, if they do rather, he will be disqualified. And I am still not convinced, James, that somebody is not going to protest the fact that Nelson Piquet was push-started in the first segment.
Yes, I couldn't agree, but it's but the only person with a really serious axe to grind about that is the Williams team themselves on Mansell's behalf. Now, it'd be very interesting to see if a team is going to protest itself, because they have far and away the greatest vested interest in that situation. Now, Senna, goodness knows what's happened. He's obviously letting the clutch out, trying to get the thing started, but they're not pushing him fast enough for him to get it to bump start it. But he's trying to make them push it faster, and funny enough, the race is so spread out now, this is probably better entertainment than watching the leaders going round.
Yeah, Senna absolutely livid, and the marshal is saying, you get off the track, Sunshine, because that's where you're supposed to be. And Senna, who's actually in charge of which way the machinery points, is not doing anything to help, because he's keeping the car on the track. And I must say I'm surprised, because although his adrenaline will be really flowing, he must know that if he's push-started, he is out of the race. So how does that affect it? That's the important thing. It means the man you're looking at now, with Senna out of the car and furiously out of the race, I can see Brazilian anger writ large in every pore of his body as he angrily pulls off his gloves. Senna is out, and up to third position overall comes Patrese.
Yes, Senna very angry indeed, and justifiable in some ways, because if the marshals had pushed the car at a reasonable trotting speed, he could have dropped the clutch and got the engine going again, and then gone into the verbal boxing ring with the officials afterwards to discuss whether he was going to be disqualified or not. But he certainly had a good precedent that one could get away with a push start, possibly, in the fact that we saw Piquet have certainly looked like a push start to us around the back of the circuit on the first lap of the original race, and he doesn't appear to have been disqualified yet, because he's happily running around and classified in second place. So Senna, one has to sympathise with. I think he has every right to be angry that he didn't get the proper help he needed when he needed it.
We're on lap 59 now. Nigel Mansell is leading the Mexican Grand Prix overall in this race, which is going to run for 63 laps. He's 27 seconds now ahead of the man you're looking at, who is leading the second segment, Nelson Piquet. Third is Riccardo Patrese, and excellent fourth is Eddie Cheever, and that equals the highest position he's had this year, fourth in Belgium. Fifth is Teo Fabi. Another magnificent sixth position overall for Philippe Alliot, who finished sixth in his 3.5-litre Lola in Germany and in the Spanish Grand Prix, the last one to have been held before Mexico. So, totally unexpectedly, a 3.5-litre car looks as though it's going to finish in the points here at Mexico, which is a fantastic achievement. There is Frank Williams in his wheelchair, watching his two men, Mansell and Piquet, flying round at the head of the field. And it's unexpected for an atmospherically driven car to finish in the points here in Mexico because of the high altitude and Piquet. Now, is that tyres or a mistake, which he made in Spain?
Well, that was clearly a small mistake. Piquet got a little bit wide there. The back on the bumps, of course, the car is pretty skittish, and the back just got away from him a bit, but he appeared to have it fairly much under control, although really he shouldn't be putting himself in the position of little mistakes like that, because little mistakes can turn into big ones. Remember that he has no chance of catching Mansell overall in the combined two races, and he's miles in front of Senna, therefore there's no reason for him to be hurrying.
But he is doing, and he is now on his 60th lap. 4 laps to go, including the one he is on. That is 4 2.7 mile, 4.4 kilometre laps. And Nelson Piquet is not only the fastest man on the circuit as Teo Fabi comes in again, but yet more tyres. And Fabi is doing what Piquet did last year, stopping 3 times for tyres and taking his time about getting out of the pits. Fabi rejoins then, but he rejoins in 5th position, so he is on 2 points in the World Championship. He's 7th equal at the present moment with his teammate Thierry Boutsen, who of course has long since retired after leading in the opening stages of the first segment of the Mexican Grand Prix. And Piquet now is on his last lap but one. He's on lap 62 out of 63. He has to finish this one and then go into the 63rd lap and last lap in what has certainly been an intriguing and truly interesting race.
Yes, it got a little bit processional with the restarted race, but there was plenty of action and drama in the first part of the race. The first lap, most uncharacteristic mistake by Alain Prost. I can hardly remember when I last saw him making an error, certainly not in the last couple of seasons that I can think of, and but he made rather an overly optimistic overtaking manoeuvre at an odd point to choose, which was in the middle of the S's, attacked Piquet, and of course those are coming together. Piquet then appeared to, well, he spun and appeared to stall his engine, but and he got what appeared to be a push start, but so far we've heard no news of any potential disqualification, because technically you are disqualified for receiving outside assistance, but nevertheless he seems to have got away with it. And as we watch Piquet go round, but of course Nigel Mansell has really made amends for his disastrous slip last year here that cost him the World Championship last year at the start when he had the car in neutral. But he's made no mistake this time. He's driven, apart from one little blemish just after the restart when he tried to pass Nelson Piquet for the lead on the road, and there is Mansell, a lead that he didn't need because he had 45 seconds lead from the first race on Nelson Piquet. But I think that gave him enough of a fright, because he had a bit of a moment, and that gave him enough of a fright for him to realise the error of his ways, and that it was much safer and more sensible to sit behind Piquet, and a well-deserved win. So Mansell can win the championship now by winning both the last two races, or by finishing first and second. Would have to be second if Piquet wins the race that Mansell's second in, and if Piquet doesn't win, Mansell can still be third in the other race, a first and a third, with Piquet having anything but a win. And there's the flag.
So Nigel Mansell has won the Mexican Grand Prix. That is his 6th victory of 1987, and a quite magnificent drive, because he took the lead and held it in the first 30-lap segment, and although he finished second to his teammate Nelson Piquet, and there is Piquet in the second segment, he did so on his own conditions, because he has paced himself all the way. A magnificent victory. And when you realise that Nigel Mansell has actually retired from 5 races this year, usually when he's in the lead through no fault of his own, a wheel nut in Hungary, an engine problem in Monaco, an engine problem in Germany and Portugal, and you can argue about whether it was his fault in Belgium, where he had his historic coming together with Senna, but Nigel Mansell would have been world champion long ago, but for the appalling luck he's had this season. But never mind that. Nelson Piquet now leads the championship with 73 points as a result of his second position here in Mexico. Nigel Mansell has closed the gap from 18 points to 12 points as a result of his win here in Mexico. Ayrton Senna is third in the championship and Prost is fourth, but they are both out of it. And there is the result of the Mexican Grand Prix. Victory for Nigel Mansell, second for Nelson Piquet. Williams Honda first and second again. A brilliant third for the new Williams man in 1988, Riccardo Patrese. An excellent fourth for the Arrows Megatron of Eddie Cheever. Fifth, the Benetton of Teo Fabi. And sixth and winner of the 3.5 litre category in his Lola Cosworth, Frenchman Philippe Alliot. And a bit of a contention there between Alliot and the officials, as Piquet, the winner of the segment, the World Championship leader and second overall in Mexico, exits the Williams. But a wonderful victory for Nigel Mansell.
Well, the race was in two parts. You must have felt pretty downfallen after the race was stopped. I mean, how did you pick yourself back up and go out and stay ahead in the second part?
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing, really. For whatever reasons better known to everyone else, I don't understand why the race was stopped. Equally, I must take my hat off to the luck that Nelson is having again, because I saw the spin with Alain, and I believe that he was push started. I remember the day that when you were push started, when you weren't in the way, you were disqualified. But there you go, compliments to him. But in the second part of the race, it was very, very difficult because I felt I was a little bit quicker, tried to overtake a couple of times, and I think the television will show what happened.
Well, it seemed to us it looked like one of your best drives ever because you were very neat, very controlled. How do you rate your drive today?
I would say that even now I'm very restrained. I'm very happy that I've won, but you know, a little bit annoyed that the race was stopped in the first place, and a little bit disappointed that although I've won, someone else has a tremendous amount of luck.
Well, you've closed the points a little bit, and I know you don't want to talk about the championship in the next two races, but there must be just a little bit of glimmer of hope there for you. Any comment?
Any comment? Yes, I mean, last year, as I said, the championship will take care of itself, and it'll take care of itself this year. I just hope that everybody plays fair. They give me a reliable car for the next two races, and who knows what can happen. You know, perhaps we might win the next two.
Tony Jardine with Nigel there. Aggregate race result, another Williams 1-2. Mansell from Piquet. Patrese third in the Brabham, his best result of the season. Cheever fourth in the Arrows. Teo Fabi fifth in the Benetton. And Philippe Alliot surprisingly sixth in the normally aspirated Lola. So the point situation, not really any clearer, although James had a brave attempt at explaining it. Mansell closes the gap to 12 points. He will certainly be world champion if he wins the two remaining races in Japan and Australia. Piquet can only increase his points total by winning, but he can clinch the title now in Japan if he wins and Mansell fails to score. But Nigel, I'm sure, will be determined to take the contest all the way to the final round. Next Grand Prix, Japan, November the 1st.